All right, we're going to get started. My name is Debbie Elder with Shady Oak Primary School, and today's topic is Effective Parenting, a Guide to Cooperative Households. So I just want to introduce myself briefly before we get started. For those of you that have not met me or don't know me, I run and own Shady Oak Primary School here in Richmond, Texas. We're a small school serving first through fifth grade. And we have open enrollment and are looking for families that fit our community and are interested in learning the way we learn, which is very experimental and very much using project-based learning, very hands-on, lots of voice and choice, really giving students an opportunity to truly critically think, problem solve, and learn. We don't teach to a test. So if you want more information about what we do here at Shady Oak, please visit our website at www.shadyoakprimary.com. So I'm excited to bring this topic to you today. Cooperative households was a term that I came up with when I was running a foster home in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. My husband and I brought in young ladies between the ages of 12 and 18 who had severe behavior problems. And what we learned was when they felt part of our home, when they cooperated with us, when they had roles and jobs and obligations, they were much quicker to become part of our family. So imagine, if you will, that we're all together and I say to you, come on over to my house this weekend. I want to invite all of you people to come and stay with me. And you arrive Friday night. I have a beautiful dinner ready for you. And I won't let you serve or clean up. And the next day you wake up and breakfast in bed is being served. By lunchtime, if you're like most of us, which I'm sure you are, it's starting to feel a little uncomfortable. You want to participate. You want to at least set the table. Can you make a salad? How can I help you, Deb? Right? You're going to be asking me. And that's normal. And I think we also need to ensure we give our children an opportunity to feel that normalcy. So that's kind of what I'm going to be talking about today, are different ways to allow our children to be part of something bigger. I did corporate training many years ago for a water company, and they had asked me to come in with staff retention issues. They were really struggling to keep their staff who were paid by the hour. They're hourly. So these were people that would walk around. You see them in the neighborhoods reading meters, or maybe they were doing billing, or they were in the accounting department and people would come to the window to pay for their monthly water charges. And so these were people, as I said, who were hourly, and it was very difficult to retain them. What I did was allow them to see how they were a spoke in a very important wheel and what their job was. And really, they were the face of the business. And we went into all the things that they bring to the business and why they were so important. And all of a sudden, with that understanding and a clear description of their role and how they participated in that, the retention levels went way up because they really felt a sense of meaning and purpose. And I think that's super important when we're raising our children. So one thing I want you to remember, and these are so basic principles that I think really need to be something that as parents we remember always, is that there are two principles. Every child wants to succeed and every child wants to please you, the parent. Our job is to make it easy for them to do that. And I know many of you on this call would never go to a meeting without having an agenda. I know myself, I don't like to participate in meetings where I haven't been given the agenda. My time is valuable, as I know yours is. And that's how we operate in the business world. But I've spoken to many, many parents over the last 30 years who parent each day like it's a brand new day. And I'm hoping through this discussion today that I can change that mindset a little bit, where we can get specific clarity on what it is you're actually wanting for your child. So what's your vision? And this was sort of my mantra raising my two daughters, was what do I want walking out my door at 18? And that really allowed me, because once I made those big decisions, the little ones were really easy, right? Does it get me to that outcome or not? And then you have to come up with a plan to achieve that vision. So I'm going to give you just a few minutes to think about that. What are you trying to get to? What's the plan here? What's the goal? It's not enough to just get them through high school. There's a whole lot of other things that they need, both mindset and tools and understandings and habits and connections to be successful in the world. Getting through high school isn't enough. So at 18, what are the things you need to equip them with that will allow them to represent you in the world and to also be contributing citizens of the world that you're sending them out into? And what do they need? Keeping in mind, I always thought of my house like having a big trampoline net around it. So I wanted to give my daughters the opportunity to skin their knees with me so they didn't break their leg when they got out into the real world. My role and my job, I felt, was to have them enter into the world when they're ready and kind of look out and go, wow, this is exactly what I thought it was going to look like. No surprises. When you're on your own and making it in life, you don't need the surprises then. You need to learn and understand with that big safety net around what life is going to throw at you so you can come up with strategies and techniques on how to deal with it. So spending some time figuring out, and you can be as specific as possible here because that clarity will serve you so well as you continue on your parenting journey. So we need citizens who are leaders, leaders of themselves, and then eventually leaders of others. Leadership, as you know, doesn't just happen overnight. There are specific things that people need to learn, to study, to become strong leaders. And it starts with sense of self. I spent several years doing college planning here in the Houston area, and what that entailed was helping families pay for college and helping students get ready to be effective in college. And it was very interesting to me as I worked with these juniors and seniors in high school, how little self-awareness they had. They had been really driven or taken to all these events and just kind of were going through the motions in their life to the next thing that people had set up for them, typically their parents, that they really hadn't sat back to figure out, how do I learn best? Where should I study before I have an exam? How do I like things to be done? And so really giving your children an opportunity to learn about themselves is, in my opinion, one of the best gifts you can give them. So we want them to be contributing members of society, as I mentioned earlier. And so that entails being well-rounded. And by that, I don't mean because they've been through the McDonald's drive-through one too many times. It's a different kind of well-rounded. I want that our students, our children, understand gratitude and understand appreciation, because when you have appreciation, you have joy. And when you have joy, you're really fun to be with and to be around. And I think that's super important, that they understand themselves and are able to also be empathetic. And by empathy, being able to, know what it feels like to walk in the shoes of someone else. But you can't do that unless you've spent some time learning about other cultures, where you may be in pre-COVID or post-COVID, you'll be doing some traveling and really learn about different ways people live and realizing that we're all very, very similar and we all kind of want the same things. When you are empathetic, you're able to have that sense of compassion for others, which I feel is very, very important. As I mentioned, we need to be appreciative. We need to teach our children to have gratitude. You can do that with daily affirmations. You can do that with gratitude journals. There's so many ways to teach gratitude, but one of the best ways is to practice it as the adult in the home so that they see and learn it from you directly. And then to be happy, right? People who are happy are really fun to be around, and I think our children need to be happy. I was speaking with a 5th grade student a couple of weeks ago who had really taken on all of the worries of the world with COVID, and he was feeling very out of control. And when I used that term, he just broke down sobbing. And I think a lot of our children are feeling that, especially in these uncertain times. And so being able to allow them to be happy, carefree children. And what I reminded this young man is that, you need to trust your parents. If they lose their jobs, which is what he was very concerned about, they are responsible individuals. They have reserves. They have a rainy day fund. They're going to be fine. And he mentioned the fact that we had some faculty changes here at school. And I said, you have to trust me. You have to trust me that I'm bringing on the best people to teach you. And I said, but you need to be concerned about what you can control. And at that moment, he confessed to me he had not slept the night before. And I asked him about that. He said, well, I have a spelling test and I didn't study as much as I wanted. And I stopped him there and I said, no, that's what you can control. And so letting your children understand what pieces of their life at the ages that they're at, that they can actually have an impact on, is super helpful to them. So we need to allow our children to think. And what we're seeing in so many of our schools is that's just not happening. But giving children an opportunity to truly think, because as it says here, our mind is like a parachute and it works so much better when it's open. And children deserve to be thinkers, to be not given the answers, but asked to pursue the answers, to do the research, to really think things through, to ask with curiosity, and to explore, and to really have fun with learning. So instilling a love of learning allows your children to really explore this world and to, again, get a better understanding of who they are. So make it fun, significant, interesting, and meaningful. And that's kind of the cornerstone of what we do at Shady Oak, because when you have that sense of curiosity, when you are interested in what others are doing and what you can do for yourself, life becomes so much more interesting, and you have a sense of wanting to give. You have a sense of wanting to help. And all of this gets them ready to be a cooperative member of your household. So you need to lead them by encouraging their efforts, lead by example, and accept only quality work. So as you're working with your child on different things, you know, sometimes there's a tendency to allow the urgent to overcome the important. And by that, I mean, if we're not sure on what's important, we can let the everyday sense of urgency take over. So if you're teaching your child, for example, the importance of making their bed, and you don't insist that it be done to the standard that you want, you kind of lose something there. I think having high standards lets the child know that you believe that they're capable, that this is how we do things in our house. We do things to the best of our ability. And then the next step is to ensure that it's being done. So follow-up is key. Oh, excuse me. Follow-up is really important. And if there isn't follow-up, there's kind of like a, meh, why do I need to do it? And especially when you're young and your maturity level is not as high as it may need to be, or that it's growing towards, they will oftentimes be more apt to do something for someone else than to do it for themselves. We run a summer success summit here at school, and one of the things I learned when I moved it from serving high school and middle school students to serving, you know, lower elementary students, that they again needed to do something for others that they might not have done for themselves. And so we made the decision to write books about different topics. So as they learned about it, they might not have been that interested in learning about success or mindset, but they were very interested in learning about it enough to teach another and to write a book about it. And that was like the hook that got them in. And as a result, there was meaning, there was purpose, and they really enjoyed that process. So much so this year, they have pushed us to a 3-week camp as opposed to 2. So children really appreciate that and love to know that they're capable. And so when you set standards and allow them and help them to reach those standards, it's a set of accomplishments and it feels good. And I think that's something that we really need to keep in mind. So 4 ways to improve your feelings of self-worth is self-esteem comes from what you do. It doesn't come from what others say about you. So it's important to let them be and do things, which gets into this cooperative household, which we'll talk about in just a bit. Help them to identify their strengths. One of the things I do when I'm working with children initially is I ask them to come in and write down for me 10 things they're really good at. And that tells me more about that individual than you can possibly imagine. So I've worked with children who have come in and they're writing their 10 things, and some of them will raise their hand and ask if they can flip it over because they have so many strengths they need to use the back of the paper. And then I have other students who have nothing to write, right? They don't know any of their strengths. They've been told or have been led to believe that they don't have any, or they only have weaknesses, or they only concentrate on the things that are not working well. So helping them to identify their strengths really helps to build that self-confidence, because I don't know what age your children are, but they're going to reach an age where your voice isn't enough to boost their confidence, right? They're going to reach an age where they will believe that it's your job as their mother to say those things. When they're younger, they do believe it. Keeping a victory journal is a great way to do this. And with a victory journal, the student or the child will simply write in their own words, in their own handwriting, the day maybe they come home from doing a grand slam at a baseball game that allows their team to win the game. That's something you'd want to write in your victory journal. Or maybe your dance competition won because of something that you did. That's something you want to write in a journal. And then on those days where you're having a bad hair day, where it is not seeming like you're having any successes, you can pull that victory journal off the shelf and read it. It really rings true with someone when it's written in your own words. And it's a great trip down memory lane to relive those precious moments where you really shined at what you were doing. We want to instill a level of self-discipline, and that's super important. Again, we have in this country, we have so many college students who are not making it, right? They're going away to college, and by November, they're back on academic suspension because they didn't have the self-discipline to do what needed to be done. And if you wait until your child crosses that threshold into the college campus to think that they're going to be endowed with self-discipline and know the things to do, well, we just know that's not going to work. So instilling a sense of self-discipline now when they're young is the best time to start. So 3 things to not do. So if you're going to allow a child to have self-confidence and feelings of self-worth and to be self-disciplined, you can't micromanage them. You've got to be able to give them a job to do, an expectation to be met, and then let them do it their way. So one of the things that I used to hear a lot when I was doing parenting in households with different families is the mother would complain that they weren't maybe putting their laundry away or doing it when they wanted. And so I would say, well, tell me, how does that work? What does that look like in your house? And the mother would say, well, I would go to them, they're watching TV, and I'd tell them to turn the TV off and go put their laundry away. I said, all right. I said, if I was at your house and living with you, would you turn off my favorite television show and tell me to go put the laundry away? Sometimes we're not very gracious with our own children. Sometimes, again, the urgency gets involved before the importancy does. And I think what I suggested to these parents, and I'll suggest to you also, is to give them a due-by time or date that day. So you may say to the child, listen, I need to get you to put your laundry away before dinner. That's fair. That gives them a lot of choice when they're going to do it. And I was speaking at a conference several years ago, and I was talking about this very subject, and a woman in the audience raised her hand and stood up and said, you know what, I tried that, it didn't work. I said, okay, let's talk about that. The idea is that when you complete this, I want it done before dinner. And I just asked the woman, I said, did you feed your child dinner that night? And she said, yes. And I said, that's where you went wrong. So if you're going to give deadlines, you have to hold your deadlines. And in order to be consistent, you need to ensure that you walk the talk. So be very careful what you're professing you're going to do if what they do doesn't get done, right? You also want to be very careful about criticism. Nobody likes to be criticized. We all love to be taught. Criticism really doesn't, nor does sarcasm, serve your children in any way. There's lots of ways to give feedback. We run a Toastmasters class here, and for those of you that don't know what Toastmasters is, it's a speech class. That's right, we teach our 3rd through 5th graders public speaking. Part of that process is to be evaluated by a fellow peer in the class after you give a speech. And these students really want some feedback. They don't want to be criticized, and the students have been taught how to give feedback. So you can think of it as a sandwich, right? Say something you like, say something they can improve upon, and then end with something else that you also enjoyed or liked. And to be very, very specific. And that way they will hear. One thing I've done to avoid criticizing someone is to get permission to help them to reach a goal. So for example, maybe your child's working on learning their math facts, and they've told you they want to learn so many facts each week, but then you notice they're not studying. If you have their permission to be their accountability partner to help them with that, then it would be very easy to remind them of their opportunity right now as they're waiting for the bus to work on their math facts, for example. So when I work with my students and when I've worked with my clients in the past, getting that permission to help them get their goal, because the goal is theirs. It's the child's decision perhaps to learn their math facts to make math class much more easier and enjoyable. You're simply there as a conduit to ensure that it gets done and to help in any way you can. That allows you to stay out of that role of being critical. So some better things to do that really help is to use natural and logical consequences. Logical consequences are something that you use when natural is not available. So for example, let's say you read the weather for the day and you realize it's going to be a cold, rainy day. So you suggest to your child when they're going out to play to maybe put a jacket on. Child doesn't want to put a jacket on. You have a decision now. Are you going to fight over them using and wearing a jacket, or are you just going to allow them to go out, knowing they'll be outside for about 10 minutes, they'll be back in and they'll grab a jacket, right? So you've got to decide when you can allow natural consequences to take over. It is by far the best because you're not the bad guy, right? The weather is cold. You made a suggestion. They turned your suggestion down and came back in later to get the jacket. Logical consequence is a little bit more thought-provoking. So if, for example, your child is misusing their phone, it doesn't really make any logical sense to take the television away. Let me give you an example. One of my foster daughters, her name was Lori, came to live with us, and she got in trouble at school. So when she got home that day from school, I knew about it. They called me. She walked in and she sat at the kitchen table and she did her homework. And then it was time for her to have some free time. And she just stayed at the kitchen table. And I said, Lori, you're done. You can, go do whatever you want, watch TV, go to your room and read, whatever. She goes, well, I got in trouble at school today. And I said, yes, I know that. And it was taken care of at school. She goes, well, I guess I'm just grounded here too, right? And I said, no. It was taken care of at school. And then she went on to share with me that whenever she did anything wrong at home, everything was taken away. Well, that's not logical, right? That's punitive. That's not a consequence. That's punishment. If you truly want to use a consequence for something, it's a natural consequence or a logical consequence to teach appropriate behavior. You're simply removing the inappropriate behavior and replacing it with an appropriate way to get what they want. So if it's misuse of a phone, there needs to be some instruction on how to use the phone. Maybe you weren't clear, right? It goes back to that clarity. If you've been clear and it was done on purpose, that's a whole different ball of wax. You need to recognize positive behavior. And so many of us skip this step. So if you can imagine, there's a line of acceptable behavior right here. And our job is to recognize where that line is and to make sure that our children know what we expect. But here's what happens next. The child does what you expect, or your spouse or your employee, and they stay above the line. We don't say anything for the most part. But the minute they break a rule or misuse the phone or get in trouble at school, man, we are on them. They get all of our sort of excitement. They get all of our attention. That vein on our forehead pops up, our face goes flush, our voice gets really shrill. They've got us. And right now, we can be kind of entertaining to them as we're getting very mad and out of control, right? But if you were to turn that upside down and put that same energy into what they're doing right, and to really recognize when you see them doing what you want them to do. If you've asked your child to bring their dishes over from the table and put them in the dishwasher, then you need to recognize it when they do it. Don't just assume because you've asked for it that that habit is now instilled. It's not, right? And so recognizing it, saying it, and it doesn't have to be anything more than an acknowledgement. I see you're taking your dishes to the dishwasher. Thank you. It's simple. And I do a whole other talk on nurtured heart, which is where this comes from. If that's something you're interested in, just let me know and we can set that up. But there's a whole way to talk to children that will allow them to not only grow in their own sort of sense of awareness and sense of self, but to also improve the relationships that they have with you by simply recognizing what you want and not putting attention towards that you don't want. It's also important, this is parenting one-on-one, I know, but you must be consistent. If there is no snacks before dinner, but the day before you had a really rough day at work and you had a headache and your child was bugging you and you gave them the snack, and then the next day you had a great night's sleep, your boss was out of town, you're up for the fight, you're gonna fight, you're not gonna give in to the snack before dinner, it's not fair to the child. You need to stick a line in the sand and stay with it so that they can start to understand what's expected. You know, I used to drive to the airport every week, and on my way to the airport, I would pass a huge pasture with cows. And this one day I was driving by, 2 cows were right at the fence, and the other part of the herd was back of it. And those 2 cows turned and looked back at the herd. And in my mind, I was like, oh, they're telling the herd where the fence is today. Because if we're not consistent with our rules and with our expectations, it's like the child has to spend all this time figuring out what kind of mood is mom in today, what are the parameters for today, what can I get away with, what can I not get away with, and that robs them of the time they need to develop whatever it is they're working to develop at that age. So I really would advise you to look at with your spouse, with your partner, what are our consistent things? What are we expecting? Are we clear? All you have to do is ask a child what the rules are. They'll let you know whether or not you've been clear with your expectations. So you need to hold them accountable, stick to your guns, be the backstop, and believe in them. Care enough to expect the best. And I think, especially when you're starting to introduce cooperation into the household, some people call them chores. I just call them cooperative activities. And let's talk a little bit about the difference. So some people ask me how this compares with families giving their children allowance. And I have two different categories for this. So there's cooperative chores that need to be done in the home in order for us to function together as a family, right? If nobody does the dishes, we're going to run out of dishes eventually. We're not going to have anything to eat off of. Now, there's things that, keeping your bedroom clean, however you structure your family, and I have lots of ideas on that. And I also have for you, if you're interested, just email me and you'll see that at the end. I have a list of age-appropriate chores depending on the age of your child. So that might help if you're structuring this for the first time. But when you feel, like I mentioned at the beginning, that you have a sense of contribution into the home, it now becomes your home. I remember distinctly one day driving by a house in our neighborhood, and I knew the parents were on vacation, and there was a wild party going on. There was cars everywhere. There was people on the lawn. I mean, it was pretty evident that they were doing stuff that they would never do at their house, but they were doing it at their parents' house. And I use that as a teachable moment with my daughters to talk to them about, this is your home. You need to take pride in your home. And when we take pride in something, we contribute to it. And so there's a lot more going on here than just getting your kid to do chores, right? It's a sense of ownership. It's a sense of belonging. It's a sense of, I am part of this family, and I am capable enough that I can contribute. I may not be able to balance the budget, but I can definitely help put groceries into a grocery cart. And we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like and how you can ensure that your children are contributing. And like anything else, if you're going to have them contribute, then they need to have a voice. And we'll talk about how that's going to work in just a bit. But really important to me that you expect the best, and that's what they will get. They will always ride to the expectations that you set for them. So when we talk about freedom, and every child I've ever worked with, especially as they hit their pre-teens, always feel that everybody else is bossing them around, that they have no control. And I just tell them, actually, you have all the control. Your parents are simply responding to your behaviors. So if you want more freedom, then you simply need to take on more responsibility. If your parents need to discuss with you every night the importance of doing your homework, and that becomes a battle that is just uncomfortable for everyone, well, you haven't earned, through responsible actions, the freedom to go out with your friends on a Friday night, because the two go hand in hand. And helping a child to understand that makes all the difference in the world. And it's they may not like what they hear, but they definitely get the logic behind it. And oftentimes children know what to do, but there's no incentive to do the right thing. And so this freedom, responsibility, balancing act really allows that to happen. And then we need to be their safety net. We need to allow them to take some risks, right? It's our nature, I think, to kind of swoon in and fix things for our children. And I strongly, strongly advise that you do not do that. If we're always sort of paving the way and making everything perfect for our children, if they don't get to experience failure, it's going to be catastrophic. There's certain life lessons that we have to learn. If you learn them when you're young, they don't cost near as much. If you learn them when you're older, they can be very expensive. Let me give you an example. A friend of mine many years ago called me and said that her son wanted to use all of his summer birthday money and the money he had earned working over the summer to buy an Xbox. And she was dead set against that and wanted to tell him not to do that. And she was calling to discuss it with me. And I said, well, does your boss hand you your paycheck and tell you, what I've noticed, you have a lot of shoes. I don't think you should be spending any more money on shoes. And she laughed and she said, no, that's ridiculous. He would never do that. I said, right. That's exactly what you're doing to your son. She goes, but Debbie, Christmas is coming. You could probably get one for Christmas. It's really expensive. These models go out of date. I just feel it's a bad investment. And I said, I'm sure you do. But let's fast forward this. Let's say you stop him, you prevent him. What happens? You're the bad guy. He still hasn't learned that lesson about good stewardess of his money. And now he's 25 and he's buying a house he can't afford. How have you served him? I convinced her to allow him to buy the Xbox. And I said, you mark my words, by the end of February, he will let you know he has regretted his decision. So February rolls around and it's the 15th and then it's the 20th, no call. The 27th, I got a call saying, you're right. He just shared with me that he wished he had saved his money for something else that he now wants. That, and I said, you see, allowing them to stub their toe doesn't give them the opportunity necessarily to break their leg. So I just want to encourage you to not be overly protective in areas that you can allow your child to learn and be their safety net through the learning process. Just remember that analogy about life lessons. If you learn them when you're young, they're a lot less expensive. We want to make sure we're providing sufficient guidance. So again, it comes back to having clarity. It's not, I've been in houses where the child does something wrong and the parents react as opposed to respond. And there's a very, very big difference. The reaction comes out of a sense of fear, right? The first time the baby puts the fork into the electrical outlet, well, why wasn't it covered before, right? If you're not sure what's coming with your child's development, there's lots of resources, there's books you can read, there's people like me you can reach out to. There's lots of ways to anticipate what's coming next. But if you don't have clarity of what you want, you will be in a reactive mode. And it's not a very enjoyable way to parent, right? So if you can simply be responsive, it's a lot easier. So anticipating what's coming helps a lot. You want to access skills and be realistic. So when you're providing guidance, and please don't feel you need to have all the answers. And you don't have to have all the tools and techniques yet, right? But a constant parenting is like learning. It's continual and it changes, and you need to keep your skills up. It's not a once and done, right? It's making sure that you're constantly treating this as a very important job, which it is, and your role is to be the best you can be. And the best you can be is continuing to sharpen the saw, continuing to go to parenting classes, to learn video lectures, to hop on YouTube, to listen to what's happening out there, to be aware of the possibilities that are, we have a whole different online world now that when I was parenting my daughters wasn't nearly as intrusive as it is now. So just keeping up and keeping aware with what your role entails is super important. So recognizing achievement is very, very important to building that relationship, building that bond, wanting your child to be a cooperative member of your household, wanting them to not just do things for money. And we talked earlier briefly about allowance. So when things are done that your child does to be a participatory part of your family, I never paid my daughters for that, but I did pay them for things that were above and beyond their responsibilities. The other thing that was really important to me is, and this is just my personal opinion, I wasn't that worried about their bedrooms being neat and tidy. I just felt that that was one of those power struggles that I chose not to be involved in. But what I was very clear about is that their stuff was not welcome in the common areas of my home. So if my friends came over, I wanted my living room, my dining room, my kitchen, the areas that they would be, to be neat and clean and clutter-free. We did have a rule that once a week before the maids came, they had to make sure everything was off their floor so that the room could be cleaned. It wasn't a hygiene issue. It was more of, if they wanted messy rooms, really that was their space in the house, and I respected that. And I will share with you that when they went to college, their rooms were immaculate. They made their bed every day, and they've continued to do that. So you really got to pick your battles in parenting, and that was one I chose to not pick, and it worked out just fine. So just, set your guidelines for how you want to live. When they're doing something great, you praise in public, but you correct in private, and that's even in private amongst siblings. So just to ensure that you're having integrity with what you're sharing with your child is really important. One thing I'm going to share with you that has really made a difference in our ability to connect here at school with our students and also in our parenting is to use irrefutable evidence. And irrefutable evidence is when you speak to what you actually see. It's not based in opinion. And for those of you that have the preteens, the teenagers, then this is really effective because you're speaking to exactly what they're doing. It's not your opinion that their outfit is really cute. You're simply speaking to, oh, I like the way you paired the red with the blue. It's very attractive, right? You're simply talking to what you see as opposed to putting your opinion on it. When you keep your opinion out of it and stick to the facts, it's irrefutable. It will land. Even with the most well, even with a child that has a low level of self-esteem and self-confidence, when you start to point out what you see, what they believe to be evidence, they can't refute it. They have to start allowing. So think of it, maybe give an example. An artist has a large portfolio that they take to show their work. Now, in their portfolio is their best work. We've had students that have come to our school lugging a portfolio of, I'm bad, I'm stupid, I'm not a good student. I know all this because my last teachers told me this, and this is the portfolio they bring with them. And so our job on campus here is to very discreetly pull out those pictures of themselves and replace them with irrefutable evidence of this child being a good friend to others, of being a leader, of being a great student. And there's all different ways to do that. One of my most favorite ways is to actually catch them in the act with a disposable camera where I can take a picture, the Polaroid pops out, and I can leave it on their desk, and they see themselves working. It's irrefutable. And so when you're able to give your child irrefutable evidence, then they're more likely to hear it, and eventually you erode the low levels of lack of self-esteem with the high levels of self-confidence. So when you're doing this, though, you must be very specific, right? So when a child does something for you, like makes dinner, right? It's not enough to just say, that was great, thank you. You want to be specific. I really enjoyed the mashed potatoes. They were creamy the way I like. You cooked the chicken perfectly. It wasn't overdone. It was so juicy. You got the seasoning just right. I love the way you prepared the green beans. I love that you put bacon in them, whatever they did, but being very specific, because now you have a recipe to repeat. And that's really what we want. We want to give our children the recipe to repeat so that we can continue to go on and teach them the next thing. Because once they've made it habitual, we're ready to move on. Our job is, again, to work ourselves out of a job, right? We want to allow our children to go off and be successful adults. Now, I have a very different relationship with my children now than I did when they were younger. When they were younger, I was their parent. Now my role as their parents themselves is more of a friend. It's more of a contributor and a cooperative person that we can bounce ideas off of with. So your role will morph throughout the years, but as you're raising children, you need to ensure that you're teaching them skills, that you expect mastery, and that you use your teachable moments. There's so many opportunities. Again, if we'll get out of that urgent state of mind and stay more in what's important, we have so many opportunities to teach our children things that they're going to need later in life, and to really give them a head start on some things that are important. At this school, we really focus on social and emotional needs, because if you're going to be a productive member of society and someone who is able to hold a job, you need to be able to get along with people, and you need to be able to understand yourself and how they work. And so all of that can be taught in your own home as you're setting things up. Scheduling is important. Stick to a routine. Schedule breaks to sharpen the saw, like I mentioned. Maybe it's brushing up on your parenting skills, being involved with this today. You're doing that, which is awesome. Respect their biological clocks. Just because you're an early morning person and get so much done before the sun comes up doesn't mean your child is, even though they're your child. And so being really respectful, giving them that window of opportunity to complete a task. If something is that urgent, I think as the person with the urgency, we need to step back and go, why? Why is it so urgent that it be done right now? Have we not laid out the guidelines correctly? Have we not scheduled this properly? So I really would encourage you to take a moment to really look at any moments in your life in the last couple of weeks that have been urgent, and what could you have done to move them to another quadrant of your life as opposed to being urgent. Maybe important, but not something that has to be done right now. What planning could have avoided that? We make mistakes when we rush into things, when we step out in fear. And so I really want to encourage you to just take a breath and really get clear on what it is you want so that you can accomplish that. And you need to plan together. We're going to talk about planning in just a bit, but right now, in order to set a plan, in order to set goals, we need to be really clear in identifying the things that we want and what we need. So this example here of these two vehicles, both of those vehicles can get me to work, right? They're going to meet my need. I really want the yellow one on the bottom. It's just so much cuter than the red and white one on the top. But both these vehicles could serve the purpose. So when you understand the difference between wants and needs, when you help your child to understand the difference between their wants and their needs, life becomes so much easier. If you can determine what your wants are and go after them, as long as you don't interrupt somebody else from meeting their needs, you can do anything you want, right? And I think having that clarity in your household is very, very important. Understanding that anything you want is available. You can set your goals, you can go get it, you can build habits that allow you to be the best you can be. And that's really what this is about, is building really strong habits of a cooperative member of a household that will eventually transfer into a cooperative member of a team, transfer into a cooperative member in a marriage, right? All of these skills that you're teaching under this guise of running a cooperative household allow you to do that. So you want to be there as their coach, their cheerleader, and as their parent. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, the time for friendship with your children will come as they age. Right now, they have lots of friends. What they need is a parent, is a guide, is someone to help them navigate this crazy world out there and do what's best for them. Teaching them to overcome obstacles is very helpful, allowing them to understand teaching different problem-solving steps, giving them choices. Choice is really important. You don't want to raise a child who can't make a decision. And so often, in a sense of urgency and trying to run out the door, we make decisions for our children, and I think that is a real disservice. I think it's really helpful to allow your children to have as much choice as possible, and we're going to talk about a little bit more about that in just a bit. You want to encourage positive self-talk, and that can be done, again, through the use of affirmations, through listening to how you speak to yourself, through their eyes, by really using recognition so that they're creating that verbiage and that language that may be foreign to them, but they can start to internalize. That self-talk is what you're saying to yourself all the time, right? Every moment of every day, you are evaluating what's happening. And so you want to make sure that when you're overcoming these obstacles, that they have the grit and the perseverance to stay with it. And having positive self-talk really allows you to do that. And to use empathy. Doesn't mean you're going to swoop in and solve the problem for them, which I really encourage you to not do, but to help them talk it through, come up with ways, brainstorm. You know, maybe there's some issues going on. They come home with a bad report card, for example. Now, the fact that your child has a bad report card really doesn't affect your day or your life moving forward, has a big impact on them. Meaning also that the person who can make a difference is them, but you can be there as their coach to help them, but really having some empathy. I'm sorry about that. That must really be hard to be having so much trouble in school. What do you think needs to change? How can I support you? Do you need tutoring? Do you need to spend more time on homework? Do we need to work on some time management and project management? How can I support you? But allowing them to come up with the ideas and the things that they can do themselves is truly how you're teaching them to better manage. And I think that's really important. Reframing failure. One of the things that I think is important to ask is, what did you fail at today? If we can desensitize the word failure, because without failure, we don't learn, right? We wouldn't be having all these beautiful lights that we have. Edison didn't fail so many times in trying to make the incandescent light bulb. He just kept trying, he kept going. Failure didn't stop him. But so many times we allow failure, or what we perceive to be failure, to stop us. And so we don't want that for our children. So give them permission to fail. Make it easy. Talk about what their failures are. Readdress how you can look at it a different way. What are some different strategies we can try? Debriefing is important. We have students here do what we call critiques. So if you get something wrong in your math lesson, you need to figure out what you did wrong and correct it. You need to write it out in sentences. Otherwise, you continue to make the same mistakes over and over again. And if we're so fast-paced in our lifestyle, we miss those opportunities to reflect, to debrief, to make things just a little bit better. And you want to discover the lesson, right? What did we learn today, and how do we ensure that this doesn't happen to us again? And you need to sell them. In order to build a cooperative household, you need to be enthusiastic, passionate. You need to really believe in what you're asking them to do. So if you're not portraying the enthusiasm and the passion for what you're asking them to do, it's not very infectious. And they're probably not going to want to jump on board with this crazy idea that you've decided you're going to bring to them. And so, you know, if your child's asking you what's for dinner, and you're just like, we're going to have some chicken. Well, no, we're going to have your favorite. I'm going to roast it in the oven just the way you want it with, and kind of sell it, right? As you're introducing these ideas to your family about running a cooperative household, you're going to need to sell it. You're going to need to provide the advantages of why it's important. You're going to need to be able to respect their ideas, their opinions, and their time, because with a cooperative household, they're going to have a voice and you're going to be listening to them and you're going to be using their ideas and implementing their strategies. So you need to give them the opportunity to think. Now, we talked about that at the beginning. Oftentimes, children don't think because they aren't given a reason to or an opportunity, and their thoughts are not valued. When you run a cooperative household, all of that changes. Keeping in mind, too, that respect is earned. And so when you are allowing them to contribute and they say, Mom, I think we should do this, you need to listen and you need to try it with them. And so we'll talk about that. The reason respect is so important to me is because it lays the foundation for their feelings of self-respect, which is very important. And remember who owns the problem. When they run across a problem, you want to use self-directed statements and avoid power struggles. Having a power struggle, nobody wins. And I know you all know what power struggles are, but it's when you decide to dig in your heels and darn it anyways, you're just going to keep going at this until you win. There's lots of other ways, and getting clear on what your priorities are will allow you to do that. I chose to not have a power struggle with my daughters over the shape of their room, but there was other things that I determined to be non-negotiable, and that was the term we used. Everything. So for example, when my foster daughters lived with us, I made a strong decision with my husband to really not tell my foster daughters no unnecessarily. So we had a discussion with them, and I said, up in Canada back in the day, we used to play a lot of cards. When you play cards, you have a trump card. And I used to tell my foster daughters, I said, we sort of hold on to are going to put in reserve a trump card. And what that means is if you call me at midnight and you want to extend your curfew by an hour, I might say no. And it's got nothing to do with my level of trust for you, but everything to do with the fact that I'm tired and I want to go to bed and I need you in the home safe so I can do so. But when another one of my foster daughters came to me and wanted to pierce her nose, I didn't say no. She's not my daughter. I have no right to do that. But I asked questions. Wow, what are you going to do that? Why are you going to do that? Let me ask you, when you have a cold and you have to blow your nose, how does that all work? And I gave her enough information and enough curious questions that she couldn't answer to go find the answers and to come back. And she made the decision herself to not pierce her nose. So you can avoid power struggles in many ways, but getting clear on what it is you want and letting the child know what's negotiable and what's not negotiable. I like to negotiate with my daughters. I really enjoyed that because it gave me some insight as to what they were thinking. It opened my eyes to different ideas and different possibilities. And often in that process, they would either talk themselves out of something or decide it wasn't as important as they thought, or it was, and they truly had a passion for it, and I wanted to support that passion. I think as parents, sometimes we say no all too fast. And I just want to encourage you to really reflect on when you're saying no, and is that really the proper answer? And, if you've made a mistake, if you've told your child something and you want to change your mind, it's okay to do that. We're human. We make mistakes. We say things out of anger that we want to apologize for and take back. And children really respect when you do that. So we're going to talk about family meetings. And this is really the cornerstone, in my opinion, to a cooperative household. So I have a family meeting guidebook that I am going to share with you. All you have to do is email me and I'll send it to you. So when you decide you're going to want a cooperative household, I would suggest strongly that you start with running family meetings. We in our house ran them every week. The first one that we did, I listed with my husband everything it took to run our house, from paying the mortgage to cleaning the cat litter box, everything. From soup to nuts, I wrote it out. Then when we met at our first family meeting, I put that very long piece of paper on the table and I grabbed a highlighter. And I highlighted all the things that my husband and I would take care of. Yes, we would pay the mortgage. Yes, we would pay the water bill. Yes, we would pay the lighting bill. But below that was to be, conservative and to turn the lights off when you left your room, which we could all do. Yes, we would pay for the groceries, but you as my child can come and help me buy the groceries. You can help put the groceries away. So you can see where this is going, right? There's lots of areas. And once you lay out everything that it takes to run a household where everyone can cooperate and do their share. At these family meetings, because I have a family of four, we had four jobs. There was the person who was the chairman for that meeting, and their job was to put together the agenda. There was someone who was responsible for making the dessert. There was someone who was responsible for coming up with the family game that we would play after the meeting. And then there was the secretary. The secretary had to record the notes of the meeting. Everybody had an equal vote at the meeting. So this is not, you're not going to bring something to the meeting that you're not willing to allow your children to have an equal vote on, but there's so many things you can discuss as a family where they feel that they're being heard and that their voice has meaning. So we've planned many vacations doing through our family meetings. We talked about allowance, we talked about chores, we discussed anything that was on people's minds, because the chairman would go around and ask them what was on their minds this week, what are some things they wanted to talk about. It could be anything from, I'm tired of laundry being piled up at the washing machine. We're going to have to come up with a way to get laundry done in a more cohesive manner. Anything that's on people's mind, it was a place to talk. And we also made it fun. As I said, we had a special dessert with it, and then we ended with a game. So having these family meetings, because everyone had a voice that was equal, really allowed my daughters to step up their game, to really feel a sense of ownership and pride in our home, and to want to contribute. It is a awesome way to really enhance a sense of family, and I really encourage you to try that, to really be willing to. I know that the temptation is to just do it all ourselves because it's faster and it's quicker, and we just don't have time in our perception to stop and teach and use those teachable moments. But my daughter at a very young age was making family meals for us and then was driven to ballet. So by the time we sat down to eat, all of the meal was ready. Well, that didn't happen because her ballet times changed. That happened because I've been teaching her how to cook for many, many years prior to that. So there's all of these opportunities that you have that you can instill these lessons and these techniques and these strategies that your children can now apply in the home. And going back to that analogy of the big net around the house, maybe they break a plate or two. It's okay. They've learned so many lessons about how to wash dishes, how to put things away, why it's important, that they really feel a sense of, I did this, an accomplishment. And with that sense of accomplishment and those feelings of self-confidence allows them to step out and try something new. They have the confidence to go out into the world, at school even, and put their hand up and volunteer to be the person that's going to lead in different areas. You're really building a very cohesive building block that allows your child to really step into their greatness. And for that, I really hope that you will consider running a cooperative household. I'm going to pop up my information here. If you would like me to send you a copy of how to run a successful family meeting, please feel free to email me at delder@shadygoatprimary.com. If there's any questions, I'm just going to stop sharing the screen, see where we're at. All right. If there's any questions, you're welcome to unmute yourself, and I'd be happy to answer them right now. If you have things that you want to, I see there's one in the chat. Oh, Happy New Year to you, Carrie. Any questions before we drop off? Carrie, I see you've unmuted.
Hi, Debbie. Yeah. Hi. So do you have any suggestions? I happen to have teenagers. So any kind of maybe suggestions or tips for in this late stage of the game, since I have an 18-year-old and 14 and a 15-year-old, how to start implementing this?
Absolutely. So maybe, Carrie, just a little bit of background from you on how cooperative and how involved they are in the home currently.
Okay. So first we do, I do most of the cooking. Now, my children do their own laundry. They are responsible for doing their own chores every other week. And every night, of course, everybody's responsible for cleaning their own place at the table and putting their dishes in the dishwasher. But really during the week, they don't do a whole lot other than, of course, their own studies, and some of them have like basketball practice or things that they do during the week. But I like the idea of the family meeting and kind of maybe divvying up some more of the chores. But yeah, so
Yeah, the other thing that was really helpful for us, one of my daughters was a very, very picky eater. And so we decided at one of the family meetings to start doing meal planning together. And that made a huge difference. You've got children old enough to get groceries, to do, like, if you look at what are some of the skills they're going to need when they go off to college, that's a great place and a great selling point when you're talking, if they know how to do laundry, that's great, but can they cook? Can they clean? I know one of my daughters got very sick because her roommate didn't clean very well. And it was so foreign to her that, yeah, she had to leave campus and stay with another family until she recuperated. So it was just, there were so many skills that when my daughters went to college that so many of the people that they met as freshmen did not have. And so it's really maybe taking an inventory of what they do have, and then how can you incorporate those skills that they're going to need. And not to teach them skills because you might need this in college, but to put it more under the guise of, to make it more meaningful and purposeful, is this is how you help your family, right? The fact that the dishes in the sink aren't yours doesn't stop you from putting them into the dishwasher. So it's really that cooperative household that is clear on where they're going. So for example, if you, well, it's hard with COVID, but let's say you're planning a family vacation, and in order to do it the way you want to do it, there's going to have to be some savings involved. So maybe as a family, you decide to not eat out quite as much, and people start helping more with meal preparation. And as I mentioned, coming up with shopping lists. One of the things that I did that was really helpful is, instead of me trying to figure out what we were running out of, it's hard to look in the fridge and realize what's missing. It's so much easier. I just put a magnetic notepad on the fridge. If you took the last of the milk, you just wrote the word milk. So I knew most of the shopping list when I went to go grab groceries with the kids was already done, right? So just anticipating those types of things really help. We also ran the family meeting to teach how a meeting works. Why is it important to ask everyone for their opinions? Why is it important to get buy-in before the meeting starts? Why was it important to teach my 4-year-old how to keep the secretarial role when she had it, and she could draw pictures about what was talked about, so we could refer to it at the next meeting and see what our progress was. And those types of skills really allowed them to have an understanding that these are things that will help me as I move forward. They were very happy to learn them. And I think that your teenagers will be the same way, that knowing that this is something that will make it easier for them as they get older, and will also give them an opportunity to spend more time. You're all at the house anyways, and so we can make it more enjoyable. And if they're being heard and validated and truly listening to things that they would like to change, and you and your husband also need to be willing to implement the changes that they're requesting, provided that they're reasonable. So it may be something to discuss with your husband first before you open it up to the children or your teens.
Right. Yeah. No, I love that idea too, about, because it's most of the time is just me deciding what we need and what we're going to eat. I think that would be a lot of fun. I think they would actually, now my daughters, they enjoy some cooking sometimes, so I really think they would enjoy that. And maybe my son would too, just give him that opportunity if he wants to, hey, plan a meal for us. It would be fun.
Yeah, and looking at recipes online and coming up with things, and just being willing to participate and make a decision. And you don't get to complain that you don't like what's for dinner if you put absolutely no effort into providing the dinner or coming up with some suggestions. So giving them that voice really makes a big difference.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. Any other questions or comments?
I think I have some ideas, but I was just going to see if you had any tips for, well, I guess my husband's coming from a tradition of more of the authoritarian parent household, encouraging husbands or spouses to appreciate involving the children more in family decisions.
Yes, I think that being able to look at it for the long term is one of the great ways to encourage that willingness to kind of allow them. If we make all the decisions for our children and then we expect them to be decisive, that's kind of an oxymoron. It's not going to happen. And giving them a voice allows them to be, it's like a give and take. You know, if your child knows that you're really listening to their requests, and, you know, it's like when I used to teach preschool, the children would come in and they would want something and they could see, I said, well, I wish I could wave my magic wand and allow you to have this, but I don't have it right now. I validated them, I heard them, and they never got upset because I couldn't provide them with the snack they wanted. They just liked the fact that I at least heard them and was willing to maybe get that snack for another day. So it's the same in the household. When they feel that they have the opportunity to make decisions, to provide input, to make suggestions, and then, wow, the adults in the household really follow through and it works, then you're empowering them to, again, be thinking more about the household, the family, and to come up with some great ideas. And as you know, Deidre, kids have amazing ideas, and your two sons are at the top of that bracket. And being able to foster that for them so they have the confidence when they go out in the world to make suggestions, to say, you know, I was thinking about this and I would like to try it this way. What do you guys think? Or, you know, if we got up just 10 minutes earlier, I think it would be a lot less hectic getting everybody out of the house to go to school, and then being willing to try it and then go back and evaluate it. And I guess too, finding out what the resistant person's reasoning for it may be would also help. If it's because, well, I don't know what the reasons would be, but if there are reasons that
no, this is the way it's been done.
yeah, exactly.
This is what was modeled to me, so this is obviously what worked. But you know, from my perspective, like, well, I can see how it didn't quite work. So,
well,
okay. And can I add to that also, because I'm having the same issue with similar type of husband, or they tried it 6 months ago or last year and then they fail. Why should we give them another chance?
And I think that's a very punitive attitude, and what we really want to look at are consequences, right? So consequences, you teach the lesson, you know, there's natural consequences, there's good consequences, there's bad consequences, but the next day is a new day. You get a new page, you get to try again. We're all going to make mistakes. If I have to drag every mistake I've made in life with me into the next day, that's too hard, right? So especially with our children who are just learning and trying to make their way in this world, we need to allow them to make their mistakes, learn from them, and then move on. We just can't keep bringing those back up or reminding them. You know, we tried that then, but now they're 6 months older, they're more mature. I think it's time to try it again. And the other thing I would encourage all of you to do is to reflect on what was your role and why it didn't work. Was it not clearly articulated what your expectations were? Did you not take the time to really think about what your expectations were? Or, you know, sometimes if, you know, we can't change anybody but ourselves. So if we're very clear on what it is that we're doing and how we possibly have either contributed to the problem or could have prevented part of the problem, that's a great place to start. And I know there's people out there that, you know, kind of will try to tell me, well, it worked for me as a kid, it'll work for my kid. Yeah, you know, but we also didn't have high-speed internet back then, and look at how much better it is now, right? So being able to progress not only in our technology, but also in how we run our families, I think is really important. And I love, that was my mantra as I raised my kids, was what do I want walking out my door at 18? And that made everything so clear to me, because it really allowed me to know where to focus my energy and my time. And having daughters who were independent and critical thinkers and problem solvers and who had self-confidence and could step out with that confidence and not be fearful was really important. So then I just had to back it up and see how to institute it and implement it in our home so that they could practice it. And if we make all the decisions for them and we do all the raising and don't incorporate them into it, I think we do them a real disservice. I don't think we allow them to practice with us where it's safe. Any other questions or thoughts?
No, thank you very much. This was helpful, and you know, I can see it more and more clearly as the boys get older, how to more easily implement these things.
Well, good. That's great. We had a meeting every week until we made the decision as a family to homeschool. And then it just seemed redundant because we were together all the time. We just updated my husband when he came home from work. But it really, and my girls were young. We started when Melissa was 4 and Natasha was 5. So it's never too young to start. Now, we didn't have 4-hour meetings when they were young. They were very short, but it was setting the ground for the idea that you have a voice and I want to hear what you have to say. And it keeps that, every parent wants that line of communication to continue, especially when things are troubling our children. And this really laid the groundwork for that, where they really felt that they could come to us because we valued their opinions and were willing to listen to them. So thank you all for joining today. If you do want a copy of that, just let me know and I'll be happy to send them out. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, and I will talk to you later. Thank you again.